Hi, my name is Maceo Lewis, and welcome to ML Movie Reviews. Today I'm going to talk about the movie Eddington. So hit the subscribe button if you want to see more commentary about movies. Yeah, with Eddington, look, I liked the movie. I thought it was funny. I want to see it again over this weekend, but unfortunately I didn't have the time. Maybe I'll see it tomorrow. I'm not sure, but I want to do this spoiler review right now because probably Monday will probably be too late to put any spoiler reviews out. So I'm just basically going to put my thoughts after a one-time viewing of the movie. So this is my quick take on the movie. And look, I'm about to get into sports right now. So if you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch Eddington. It stars Joaquin Phoenix, um, what's her name? Emma Stone, Austin Butler, Pedro Pascal. There's a whole cast there. I mean, I'm getting the spoilers. Overall, the movie it takes place in during COVID, and the sheriff played by Joaquin Phoenix. He's sort of like an anti-masker, sort of like a COVID denier. Well, not necessarily a COVID denier, but he denies that COVID has any relevance in his community, and so he feels like the community they shouldn't have to wear masks, especially him because he's asthmatic. There's a elderly gentleman in the movie where people are basically ostracizing him, making him feel bad for not wearing a mask, and the old man's like, well, I can't breathe with the mask, and so the sheriff takes his position, and the rest of the community they're basically maskers because they want to prevent COVID. And so the rest of the community and the person who's the mayor, who's played by Pedro Pascal, are at odds with the sheriff. And ultimately, Joaquin Phoenix decides he wants to run for sheriff. So now, this movie to me, I mean, right from the beginning, it was clearly like a dark comedy. I was a little bit on board. I was just like trying to get into the plot, like understand the characters, what was going on. But when this movie really kicked in the gear for me in terms of the comedy, was that ad campaign that they played with Pedro Pascal. Oh my God. When that ad started off, when he said that because they dropped the line that his wife like abandoned him or something like during the movie, but then like in the ad campaign, when he's like basically telling his potential voters that his wife abandoned him, I just started dying. I was like, oh my God, what? I don't think any politician would ever say that. But I mean, that was the funny part about it. It's like he's basically advertised that his wife left him. And then like the sheriff was making comments about that when he was watching the ad campaign. I thought that whole scene was hilarious. But the scene, I mentioned this in my out of theater reaction that had me rolling the most was the dinner table scene. So when the kid, I can't remember his name, the white kid who had eyes for the protester girl, he was basically getting involved with the Black Lives Matter movement to impress this girl. You could clearly see that that's what his motive was. But then he started, listening to, what the girl was saying about white privilege in society. So at the dinner table, he's talking to his parents about how privileged they are as white people. But the funny thing about the whole scene was the dad's reaction when he like looks at him and he says, "Are you fucking retarded?" I was laughing for like 5 minutes because it was not just the line, but his delivery, his reaction. That whole scene was just so funny, and the whole theater was laughing. Like it's not that we disagree with the message about white privilege or anything, but it was just like his reaction to it. It was just so funny. And another thing that had me rolling was the Native American cop, because okay, so obviously spoiler alert, but when the sheriff shoots Pedro Pascal, he's basically trying to cover it up and make it seem like it's part of the Black Lives Matter movement or whatever. And but he sees that there's this guy at the spot where he took the shot, and so he's like kind of looking at him like, who is this guy? And like throughout that whole time that the Native American was there, he seemed to be popping up and popping up and popping up. And so there was one point where the sheriff was arguing with like I guess one of the deputies. Oh, you know what happened? But they suspected, well, not obviously the sheriff, but the white sheriff basically was pinning everything on the black sheriff, and they wanted to search the car, and so like the black sheriff was like, "Hey, I don't trust the white guy. He trusts Joaquin Phoenix, but he doesn't trust the white guy who was accused of him." And then the Native American was standing right there, and then We looked at, well, you seem to be everywhere. Why don't you help out? I was rolling. That was so funny. And that scene when, so after they arrested the black sheriff, the Native American guy, he was listening to the black sheriff and how he was on the phone talking about how he's innocent and stuff. But then he noticed the writing on the wall when the mayor wrote his, he was brainstorming his ideas for a campaign. He noticed the writing and he noticed there was something about that writing. And so he got up and ran. And the way that he ran like that, it was so funny. And then Joaquin Phoenix is the sheriff. He noticed it and he starts following him and he follows him all the way to his house where the sheriff starts talking to his mom. That scene was so funny. And like the end when so it was established at the beginning of the movie that the sheriff wanted to have kids with his wife, but whenever they would try to, consummate or whatever, his wife, played by Emma Stone, was like, no, I'm not in the mood, right? So clearly, things were working out in terms of him trying to have kids, so he picked something else, some other issue to, like run for campaign or whatever, right? But then at the end of the movie, when his I think it was his mom. He's, oh look, and his wife was on TV, and she ran off with the guru played by Austin Butler. And then you see her sitting there, and her belly like clearly indicating that she's pregnant, presumably by the Austin Butler character. So at the beginning of this movie, like he's trying to impregnate his wife, and she wouldn't have it, but then she meets this guy. I thought that was funny. I'm sorry, and in the final scene when the guy who's helping out. It's because Joaquin Phoenix is basically paraplegic at this point because he got stabbed in the head and he didn't die, but he was basically immobile, and now he has to have someone taking care of him throughout the rest of his life. And so the guy who was taking care of him ends up crawling in bed with his mom. I mean, and that was the end, basically the end of the movie. And of course, at the end, you see the mall that the Pedro Pascal character was supporting and trying to get in anyway. And basically, the world went to shit for the sheriff. I mean, he did some bad shit, and I'm gonna get into the other thing that was about this movie. It was surprising. Now, look, when I saw that scene when Joaquin Phoenix went to the mayor's house and told him to turn the music down, and the mayor slapped him. I was thinking at that point, okay, he's gonna do something, right? But I thought he was either gonna arrest him, go to the car, get his gun, and show some force or something like that. But I thought he was gonna do something, but then he ends up driving away, right? And he drives away and he goes to that bar where that homeless guy was previously, because earlier in the movie, the sheriff was like basically saying, hey, there's nothing wrong here. The guy can stay outside. But then once the guy went inside, there was that scuffle. They were filming it, winds up on the internet and stuff. Then the homeless guy, he actually breaks in and he's like inside the bar drinking booze and stuff. And he's like the only one there. And so when I saw the sheriff like staring at him, I'm thinking, okay, he could shoot him, but I don't think they're going to go there. And then when he actually shot him, I was like, okay, this is probably one of those movies where he's imagining himself shooting him, but he really doesn't in reality. But no, he shot the guy in cold blood. I mean, I'm not laughing that the guy got shot, but I was just like surprised that they actually went there in this movie. And it was like a shocking moment. And it was like, wow. And so, and I'm just sitting like, well, what's going to happen with this character? Like, so the main character of this movie is like shooting like an unarmed homeless guy. Like, where are they gonna go with this? Because obviously this guy's not a hero. So this guy, this main character has to have a bad ending. And so then we transition to Pedro Pascal's side. And then so I'm seeing Pedro Pascal's character at the house. I'm like, that would be something if the sheriff came to the house and shot him. But I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna go there with this, but sure enough, after when Pedro Pascal was like telling his son about the female purse they found, like, hey, you're not supposed to have company, whatever. And then when the bullet came and shot, I'm like, dang, they went there. And then I'm like, are they gonna shoot the? Is he gonna shoot the kid too? Now, yeah, they established that the kid was an asshole. He was a dick when he kept talking about. That was another funny thing. When every time the kid would argue with the sheriff, he would bring up how his dad screwed his wife. But I mean, clearly the kid was a dick, but he didn't deserve to die. I mean, none of these characters, the mayor, the homeless guy, none of them deserve to die. Let's make that clear. But that was the whole shocking thing about it. And then when he shoots the kid, it's like, damn. And so what's going to happen with this guy? And then so I thought he was killed when the guy stabbed him in the head, but I mean, apparently that just made him paralyzed for the rest of his life. So I guess that's a fate worse than death is to, I mean, I'm not saying that's saying anything about people who are paraplegic, but I'm thinking like for this character who lost control, or who didn't have any control over a situation at the beginning of the movie, it turns out that, by the end, he doesn't have control over his motor functions in the end. So it's not like a movie that's meant to, celebrate what this guy was doing. It's more like like a cautionary tale or whatever. It's kind of like an odd movie. It kind of reminds me of Beau is Afraid, although I think this movie is better than Beau is Afraid, and it's not surprising that it's made by the same person who did Beau is Afraid. But there's like kind of like this wackiness, especially like towards the end. It kind of reminded me of that movie. And obviously Joaquin Phoenix was in Beau is Afraid as well. The one thing I didn't like about the movie was the length, because it just I felt the length. It was like about 2 hours and 20 minutes. And so, I mean, there are times where I definitely felt it, and I was like, dang, this is kind of like going on. And especially like at the end, it seemed like, okay, I thought the movie was going, oh no, it's still going, no, no. I mean, because I thought it would, I mean, actually the movie could have ended when the guy stabbed him in the head, and then the kid came out and shot the guy who stabbed him in the head. But no, it just kept going on and going on. But yeah, later we found that the black sheriff survived. So when the explosion happened, after the black guy somehow gets out of jail, and then presumably he gets captured by, I don't, I have to watch the movie again because I'm not sure who these people at the end were. I don't know if, because there was like a statue of like a white, it seemed like a white power type thing, but I don't know if they were saying that they were part of Black Lives Matter, or a reaction against Black Lives Matter. I wasn't quite clear with the first viewing. Maybe if I see it again, I'd pick up on it. But anyway, those people apparently took him out of the cell and led him out to the middle of nowhere, and he was strapped to a bomb, and he was basically trying to tell the guy, don't come near because it's going to blow up. And then when the explosion went off, obviously the white cop who arrested the guy, he got blown to smithereens. And that was actually kind of funny for me in the audience, because this is the guy who was basically allowed this innocent black man to go to jail, basically for the crime of a white man. And so he kind of got what was coming to him. But I thought the black guy was dead because he was like laying on the ground, and like he wasn't like quite moving. But then no, they showed him in the end, and he was like filming the sheriff in the chair at the end of the movie. So anyway, yeah, that was a little bit surprising. I mean, overall, I enjoyed the movie. So yeah, definitely, if you listen to this YouTube channel or this YouTube show, and you ignored the spoiler warning, and you still want to see it, I definitely recommend you watch it. And so anyway, that's my thoughts for the movie. Hit the subscribe button so you can see more thoughts, more reactions to movies I see, spoiler reviews like this one, other theater reactions on this channel. And until next time.